Hello world. Welcome to the H. Hawley Baptist Church Going Deeper live stream. I'm Daz Jones, one of the pastors here, and I would love to hear from you. So I can see the comments. Once you're in, say hello, tell me who you are, where you're watching from. It'd be great to hear from you. We every month do this live stream. We want to just build a bit of an opportunity for people to engage with the sermon series that we've been doing. This month we've been looking at encounters. It's been the title of the series, and we have been thinking in the lead up to Easter about the people that Jesus met, that he encountered him, and how. Hello, who have we got? Well, we've got Ian. Hello, Ian. Hello, Katie. Let's do some shout outs to people. Neil and Angie, hello. Martin is normally here. He's not here today. It's happy anniversary, Martin and Jen. I hope you're not watching us. You should be enjoying your takeaway and gazing lovingly into each other's eyes, but you are welcome nonetheless if you are here. Keep them coming in. We love seeing those. We've got some guests as well with me today. We've got Toby and Helen. I'm going to invite them in now so that I'm not all on my own. It's very strange. Hello, Toby and Helen. Helen's on mute.
Hi.
How are you both?
Yeah.
Living the dream.
Living the dream. How's your lockdown Sunday been? It's been okay?
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird because I can't tell who's going to talk first, so I just feel like I've just
go for it.
Toby.
Yeah, no, it's been good. I was playing at my own church this morning, which was really good fun, and now we're here, so it's good to do a couple of things.
Very good. Helen, good day.
I've had Thomas the Tank Engine and Fireman Sam on quite a lot today. So
Okay.
if we can talk about that, that would be great. I'm an expert in that.
Not what-
and
not
I
what I've
also
got
was
here.
so I was
Sorry.
also doing stuff at our church this morning. If anyone tuned in, I'm really sorry that you've got double Helen today, because I
Double
preached
Helen. It's
this
not a bad
morning.
thing. Yeah, welcome both of you. We are the series of the month has been Encounters, and we're going to chat through some questions just to build on that a bit. But if you're watching and you've got questions, this is an opportunity for you to steer our discussions. We'd love to hear from you and to get some input from you. So do throw things in the chat. There is a director behind the scenes who'll be throwing your comments up on the screen at some point if you put them in. So do that. But let's just dive in, shall we? How do you feel about that? Let's go.
Yeah, go for it.
First, so we're talking about encountering Jesus. Do you both think would you call yourselves followers of Jesus? Is that a phrase
Yes.
you use? Yes, you would.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
It's what I quite like to describe myself. I quite like the phrase follower of Jesus. So I think it sums up quite well what the Christian faith should be, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah. Is that so? If people, if you want to tell somebody that you're a Christian, would you pick a phrase like that rather than? That's not my question on my sheet, but I'm just interested to know how you would kind of. Would you avoid the term Christian, or would you go with it Helen? Sorry.
I don't know if I'd lead with that.
No. Hello.
Well, mate, you're probably
Yeah.
braver than me, Helen. Helen, you're probably braver than me, but I don't know that I'd open with that. I think I might freak people out. But I don't know. Well, fair play if you do. No disrespect if you do, but
no, I think it depends on the person I'm having the conversation with.
Yeah.
I think some people you can jump straight in with it, and they'll be like, "What does that mean?" Some people are like, "No, I'm a Christian." They'll be like, "Oh, so what does that mean for you?" Or, "Oh, you're one of them." And then you can always follow it up with, "Actually, it just means that I follow Jesus and what he said, and I live by what he says I should live by." And those things. I think it's as I say, it sums up what we should believe and what we should do. If I follow Jesus and follow his teachings and follow his example, etc., follow his fill in the gap. Which I think it sums up quite nicely and takes away from what a lot of people think that being a Christian is.
Yeah, no, I hear that. I think sometimes the term Christian comes with like a lot of baggage, and people have a lot of people put assumptions on you. Ironically, one of those assumptions is, you're probably quite judgmental. And I always think that's funny that you would judge me by thinking I'm judgmental. But it is what it is. So we call ourselves followers of Jesus. Do you think for you, did that involve, I guess at some point you decided to become a follower of Jesus, did that involve some kind of encounter with Jesus? Would you say, Toby, I'm going to go jump to you this time?
Are you going to jump to me this time? I don't think initially. I think some people I would call them very fortunate to be able to have like the big, for want of a better phrase, like the Damascus moment where they suddenly realized it was all true. What have I been doing? And suddenly, like I've got it all covered, and that's all I needed. My experience was not that way, and I certainly had times where perhaps I wouldn't have been following Jesus well, I suppose, is how if you'd put that together in that way. So I think it's difficult I suppose you would have to define what an encounter with Jesus really is in the modern day sense, not as we've discussed in the Bible where people very literally met him. So what does that mean for us today? For me, it didn't mean like bumping into him on the road. Do you know what I mean? But so what does that mean for us now?
Good question. Helen, what do you think it means to encounter Jesus in the modern day?
As I say, I think that's a really tricky one. I think it means something different for each person. I think some people do feel a very strong voice sometimes. It has been heard for people to hear a voice and attribute that to God. There have been some people who God speaks to them, or they meet Jesus or encounter him through the Bible. For me, it's regularly through other people. I think God makes himself known to me by other people, by them pointing things out and by them pointing me back to Jesus and going, oh, but Jesus did, and but Jesus says, and but Jesus would probably say or do X, Y, or Z. For example, or music a lot of the time. And actually, I meet Jesus in music. Actually, you can get a real sense of him being around. I'm a person who likes noise. I'm not good in the quiet. And so when you go to those prayer meetings, I'm like, let's pray. And then it goes really quiet. For me, I really struggle to meet Jesus in those places. Whereas I know for a lot of people, that's exactly where they see Jesus come, and actually they feel Jesus in those quiet and tranquil moments. For me, give me, some guitars and drums.
Lots of noise.
And actually, lots of noise. So, for example, I was doing when I was at university, I was doing a focus week, missions week. Lots of different universities use different phrases. Basically, an opportunity for an entire week we basically had free reign of campus to talk about Jesus as much as we wanted, and to run lots of events and things. And we had a few that weren't going very well at the beginning of the week. But then we went to Greg's for lunch because we didn't have much time. And when we were in Greg, a song by Swedish House Mafia came on, so not even a Christian song. Which just says, the lyrics are, don't you worry, child, because heaven's got a place for you. And actually, it was just that real reminder that in this mess and the things that weren't going on, actually, God was still there and God was still there. And actually, I felt a real sense of God in Greg by listening to Swedish House Mafia.
It's an absolute tune, that is. I can fully understand that. It's a good one.
Yeah, I often find God represented in Greg's through the sausage rolls. I think that's often a way I get closer to Jesus.
They taste heavenly. Yeah. I like that.
And those triple chocolate cookies, man, you just get me a little bit closer.
Yeah. Other sausage roll outlets are available.
Yeah, this isn't a direct endorsement of Greg's via Compassion or Holy Baptist Church.
Hey, why not? If you're watching in the chat, what does it mean to encounter Jesus in the modern day? What do you think? We are glad to hear from you. Helen, I feel like we dodged a question. Have you had an encounter with Jesus? Would you say you've had an encounter apart from the Swedish House Mafia thing? As part of that deciding to follow him, was there like a moment for you, I guess?
Not that I can put my finger on. I think there was lots of micro encounters through things. I don't think there was, similar to Toby was saying, there wasn't, that moment where I knew and God was there and this and that. I think being brought up in church, we often say it makes for a boring story, but it's obviously not a boring story. No story of anyone finding Jesus is a boring story.
No way.
But there's not much to report on the story, should we say? Because don't get me wrong, I've questioned God and I've said, are you, is that true? Are you there? This, that, and the other. But really, from a young age, I didn't question that God wasn't real and that Jesus wasn't there for me. So I think in the becoming a Christian or becoming a follower of Jesus, or whatever phrase you want to use, story, there wasn't really that moment for me that I can really remember.
It's so cool. I love talking to, because my story is, I think I probably had a moment when I was about 17 when I feel like I encountered Jesus and decided to follow him. And I'm always jealous of people like you, Helen, who say, there wasn't really a point when I didn't know God, because I think, wow, you must, to pick up on a phrase that Toby used earlier on, to follow Jesus well, I think you must know him quite well, having followed, he's been part of your life, your whole life. I think that's quite cool.
I think you can also get lazy with it when it's that way.
Lazy.
Because there wasn't that moment. Actually, it can be quite a transformational thing. Whereas when he's always been around, it's like, yeah, well, that's Jesus. Yeah. And I think you can become almost too comfortable in it sometimes, and actually not challenge yourself and not go out enough, and sometimes not be excited enough, because it's really exciting and God's really exciting. But I think when you haven't had that moment, sometimes you can lose that excitement or fizzle a little bit.
Yeah. Well, we got a question. Does an encounter with Jesus involve something that is life-changing? Ooh, what are we thinking?
I think it should a real encounter with Jesus should change you in some capacity. Maybe not, like the course of your career or, some major, life milestone. But I don't think I think to dismiss an encounter with Jesus as anything less than transforming is to diminish how powerful Jesus is. And I don't know God is in everything we do, of course. He's in the small, he's in the big, which means that the transformation can be small and can be big, but it's always transformational. That's what I'd say.
I second that.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I think, when you read the Bible, I mean, we've been looking at all these encounters. People met Jesus, and they were their life was changed. They were healed, and suddenly they could access the community again, or he just changed the way they thought about themselves or the sin in their lives, different things. I think if someone genuinely meets Jesus, their life will be changed, hopefully forever, I guess, in a sort of here and now sense, but then also in an eternal sense, and that we could be as the children and families pastor, I would talk about being forever friends of God. We can approach him and we can know him and we can be his friend forever. Whereas before Jesus, that's not our situation. It's cool. Thanks for that question, Neil. That was good. The next one I've got on my sheet, unless there's any more, we can skim that. How can we be sure in our churches that people don't just meet nice people, but they encounter Jesus? So how can we make an encounter with Jesus part of our church experience? It doesn't. You could go to church and not encounter Jesus. What do you think about that?
I think there's a couple of things that it kind of hinges on, and I think one is that it is it's relationship, not religion. So it's not ritual for the sake of ritual, because I think what comes with ritual soon becomes duty, and it becomes not genuine, and it becomes not meaningful. Now, that is not to say in any way that any type of church is shouldn't do those things, because
Sure.
I think, for example, the reverence and the care that's taken over communion in churches, unlike the Holy Baptist Church or myself, and there's a different kind of reverence with communion. But when that becomes ritual for the sake of ritual, at best it becomes dull, but at worst it becomes a duty and a religious practice. And all encounters with Jesus and all encounters with people should be genuine, sincere, and born through relationship. And I think if you take that communion act or whatever it is, or whatever part of church life that you're doing, if it stops being, even, I suppose, and this isn't any comment on what you guys or myself do, but that we're starting the service, let's do the token fast, Tom. Well, why have we done that? Is that a thing we feel that is that one of our traditions now, that we just do that thing because we've done that for 20 years or whatever? Well, is that duty now? And then suddenly, as I said before, it then becomes at best boring, but actually I think for people to meet people that are not just nice, I think it's people that have a genuine, sincere relationship with each other and a relationship with God. That would be that's my 10 cents for that question.
Yeah, that's good. Helen, any thoughts?
Yeah, and I think it also is, as soon as Toby says, it's about that genuineness, whatever that word is. And actually, I don't know what the word is, but anyway, that when you're being really genuine. Because actually, how many times have we heard the phrase, "Oh, there was just something different about them"? And actually, I don't think that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think that's the first step. Oh, they were really nice. There was something different, so you could see Jesus in them. And I think actually that first going from they were a really nice person to there was something different comes out of that real relationship with Jesus. And actually then it becomes so apparent in everything that you do that you're doing it not through your own gain. So I think that's actually, I think niceties can often look a little bit backhanded and look, I'm doing this for, because then it'll make me look better to everyone else. And actually I think that, and actually being really honest and open with it is often that next step over to, you could clearly see Jesus in. Because actually, it's that doing that really nice thing, really genuine, and then actually also introducing Jesus into the conversation can often be, you know, all it needs. Sometimes all it needs is a God bless you as you walk away from it. It can actually be the beginnings of it. Or it could be, I'm doing this because Jesus did it. Depending on what you're doing, when you're doing it, who you're doing it for, and who, or, you know, on what those conversations are. Yeah, I think that's really key.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I guess as well, just to add to what you said, I completely agree with you. But I guess it's ultimately comes down to why you actually being nice in the first place. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
Are you being nice because you rotated onto the welcome team and that's part of the job description, or are you doing it because you actually care about, you know, anybody that's walking in the building, not just your mates? Did you genuinely have a love for that visitor that maybe isn't dressed so nice, or maybe doesn't meet your expectations of someone you would hang out with? You know, they're different to you, but do you care? And you can't make people do that. You can't tell people to be sincere. By doing that, you are taking that, you know, it doesn't work. You can't tell someone to be sincere. You know, it's kind of why you being nice, and it has to come from a genuine place, I think.
Yeah,
people aren't as good at actors as they think they are.
No,
I'm a terrible actor.
No.
I wouldn't even try.
It's hard when it's early on a Sunday morning sometimes. You think, oh, I got out of bed a bit earlier than everybody else to get here on time, and it's tricky. But I think if people have had a real encounter with Jesus and they have that heart for people that you're talking about, Toby, then you know, whoever walked through the door, they're thinking these people have come to meet Jesus, and I can, like, if we realise that we represent Jesus, we are Jesus when people meet us. Sometimes that can help. I think maybe like focus our heads a bit when we're in church. That's all good stuff. Do you think there's a danger that we get to know like this character? Do we all have like this stereotyped idea of who Jesus is, and we get to know that character of Jesus rather than actually meeting the real Jesus?
Helen, you should definitely go first, because I go first.
Thanks. That was yeah. I think it can go one of two ways. I think there are some people who get to know, or, you know, think they know or know about that sort of rule-driven man who says, you know, thou shalt love your neighbour as yourself, and, you know, the focus is on the rules, and actually they're focused on just that one element of Jesus. There are other people who just focus on the be nice to everyone and love your neighbour as yourself, but, you know, the loving part of it rather than the rule part of it. And I think that, you know, people have a tendency to get drawn one way or the other, and actually not see that, firstly, Jesus was a really well-rounded person. And actually, but he also wasn't nicey the whole time. He called people out on stuff. And, you know, he was rightfully harsh, shall we say, at times. Do you know what I mean? Like, he said it how it was. He didn't beat around the bush when that was required. But at the same time, he also spoke with wisdom and gentleness and love and things. And I think so it's really important that we represent that as well. And actually, what's really important is we are representing Jesus to non-Christians now. A lot of the time, that's, you know, one of our roles really. Is actually that we make sure that we are also well-rounded people, and not just calling people out on everything constantly, but also not just being like super duper nice and, oh, isn't that lovely? Oh yeah, come on, yeah, the whole time as well, and actually finding that balance between the two. But that can only come from being in relationship with God and listening to when we need to be one, when we need to be the other. It's a swinging scale, and actually we always need to be at a different point along it, depending on what we're doing. And we only know where we need to be on that scale by being in that close relationship with God, and he'll naturally drive us to the right place in the right way.
Yeah, I think yeah, I mean, I won't say that you stole my notes, because obviously you haven't, but
Yes!
I did hold them up briefly at the start of the meeting, so you might have
She screenshotted them, yeah.
But
You've also told me to go first.
Yeah, I did. I should have done. I was trying to be a gentleman. That didn't work, did it? I've stitched myself up here. No, so I think no, I think what for me, the whole thing comes down to is there a danger we get to be a caricature, and I guess the second part of that is how do we make sure that doesn't happen? I think ultimately we need to know Jesus really well, and that goes with everything you've already said, Helen, about swaying to one way or the other. The only way you can avoid that is by reading your Bible, listening to good teaching about Jesus, to understand his wholeness of character. Like the only reason that I get along with my best mates or my wife or whoever is because I know them well. And you know, the same. You can't expect to have a meaningful relationship with anybody if you don't know them very well. If my relationship with I was talking to a friend of mine today, just texting him. If my relationship with him was based on maybe a sentence of something he said once, well, my relationship is going to be awful with him. It's not going to be meaningful because I've based my entire relationship on one sentence or two sentences or even a very small amount. And I think people often can run into the danger of not representing Jesus well purely because they don't know him well, and they represent an aspect of Jesus that they maybe do know and ignore the rest. So I think to represent Jesus in a well-rounded way, we need to understand him as a well-rounded person by doing, as Helen says, and understanding the Bible and just kind of listening to good teaching and all the rest of it.
Yeah, I think that's so true, because Jesus he is a person, isn't he? And you know, we have access to him through the Holy Spirit. He's not like a moral framework or a worldview that we can just sort of read about and sort of have the intellectual knowledge of. He is someone that can talk to us and can, I don't know, I want to say like adapt his personality, but you know, depending on who he met, he responded in sometimes very different ways, like a person does. You know, if I talk to my 4-year-old very differently than I talk to my wife, depending on what's going on, and Jesus is exactly the same. So when we represent Jesus, you know, we just have to be aware of the person that we're speaking to. You know, what's going on in their lives. How would Jesus, like, you know, we used to wear the band, well, I never actually did, the WWJD bands, and think about, you know, what would Jesus say to this person if he was here? And I will only know that if I know Jesus or have read, you know, about how he spoke to people in the Bible. So it's so important to have that relationship if we're going to be, if we're not just going to subscribe to this caricature. Oh, here's another question. This is exciting. I think a real encounter often brings a surprise. We will change. Thanks, Dennis. I think, yeah. I think, you know, I've been a Christian, what am I now? 32, for like 10 and a bit years. And I still learn things about Jesus. Sometimes I'm flicking through the Bible or I'm having a conversation with someone and they have this, you know, thing. I'm not sure if that meets the sort of understanding I have of Jesus, but I think we can always learn new things, and I don't think Jesus changes, but I think our understanding can change of him, and we shouldn't be scared of that. What do you think, Helen?
I went first last time. I stole Toby's note.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Want me to hold them back up? There you go.
Yeah, let me read them again. No, but I think actually on what Dennis has said, I think it's a real, it's a real challenge as well. Actually, as you say, we shouldn't be scared of that change. That will change both our understanding of Jesus and potentially our understanding of ourselves and our understanding of the world around us. And so it's really, but it'll be an exciting change, a scary change, quite possibly. But actually, you know, in this series, we've been looking at encounters, we've seen each time that different people, you know, they've all responded differently. Obviously, we've looked at, you know, lots of very positive stories where people have been challenged as well. So, you know, for example, this morning, you know, the story of Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus was changed, and yeah, he was challenged. But actually, what we didn't talk about this morning was so was everyone else around. They were challenged as well by Jesus encountering Zacchaeus. Everyone else that was around was also challenged, because actually they noticed that, you know, he was eating with a sinner, you know, to use their phrases and their language. And actually, so that would have been, firstly, that would have been a massive surprise for them. And actually, they would have been changed as well. And I'm really sad we don't hear how they responded further than, oh no, Jesus is going to the house of the sinner. I thought it would be interesting to know what else happened there as well. So it's not only the people that Jesus encounters directly, it's everyone around. It's sort of, I don't know what the positive phrase is for collateral damage. whatever the good of that is.
Yeah, I think I know what you mean.
A nice
Like we
ripple
need
effect.
to be ready for that as well.
Ripple effect. That sounds good. Yeah,
That's the one. Thanks. That's better than collateral damage.
that was good. Well, you know what you're.
I got it from my notes, actually, Helen. You should have read the notes a bit clearer.
Oh, I missed it.
So held them up a little bit longer next time.
Yeah, sorry.
Couldn't work out your handwriting.
That is very believable.
Okay, so if there's anybody watching, thinking to themselves, hang on, like, I'm not sure I've ever had an encounter with, like, listening to us, I'm not sure I've ever had an encounter with Jesus. And maybe I want, I'm not really, like, where would you start? What would your advice be to someone who's looking to start thinking about an encounter with Jesus? Toby, you can go first this time. I picked from Helen last time.
There we go. We've been told. Okay, so I think I've got kind of a two-strand thing for this, because if people want to encounter Jesus, I think there are many Christians that want to encounter Jesus as well.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try and speak to both groups if I can, because I think there are many people. Of course, there are many non-Christians that want to hear, what's all this Jesus guy about? What's all the Christian stuff about? Great. But I think there are many Christians that would actually say, I don't know whether I've really encountered Jesus in a meaningful or noticeable way. You're talking about transformation. You're talking about this grand, amazing thing. And actually, I don't feel that I've had that. So I will try, if I can, to give you a little double answer. So I'm speaking to the Christians, I suppose. I would say people encounter Jesus in kinds of different ways. The way I encounter Jesus might not be the same as you or Helen or Daz. And even when Daz says, as I was flicking through my Bible, I had a little stab of guilt, like, I never just flick through my Bible. That's just not the kind of, I'm not that guy. But I think, for me, it's a lot in worship music. I'm a worship leader at my own church, and I play at my own church. And I think really good worship music, and I'm not talking just musically good, and I'm definitely not talking My Jesus My Girlfriend type worship music, or anything that focuses so much on our brokenness, and I'm not going to name any particular bands or groups or anything like that. That's not what I'm talking about, and I'm not trying to disparage anyone particularly, but I think there is a bit of a thing in a lot of modern worship and contemporary worship that focuses so much on how broken we are, but forgets to focus on how good God is. And yes, there is a place for focusing on our own brokenness, but actually being humble is not thinking less of ourselves, it's thinking more of God. And I think worship music that does that, I think, is really wholesome and very helpful. I think if people are spending a lot of time listening to worship that's very me, in fact, I challenge you, even if you're listening this evening, find a song that does not include the word I in the worship song once. Try that, see if you can find one. And if you do, listen to it, because it's probably packed with some decent, there's plenty of amazing songs with I in it, but that doesn't mean to say you can't ever have I in a worship song. But when it's too me, I think you lose, and then you get too self-absorbed. So I think if you want to encounter Jesus, stop talking about yourself. Talk about Jesus. Second thing, speaking to kind of non-Christians, there's amazing alpha courses that are safe and open, very helpful ways to ask all those questions. And I don't know if you guys do an alpha course, but there's your plug if you wanted one.
Yeah,
that was my point.
Yeah.
That was my point.
Oh, look at that. There we go.
There you go. If you'd like to do alpha, that email address. We've got one coming up on the 14th of April.
So that's £40, by the way, Daz, just to let you know that that's how much you were meant to pay.
Send me the invoice.
If you wouldn't mind. So And you know, there's amazing courses, and it doesn't just have to be Alpha. Although if you are local to Hawley, or even you can do it on Zoom. You can live in Scotland if you want. There's plenty of stuff. Get stuck into people that know Jesus. Listen to good preaching as well. And again, worship music can be helpful. But sometimes there's a bit of jargon in there that can maybe confuse you and maybe put you off. So I just start base level. What are your questions? What do you want to know? Find someone you know and ask them those questions, those burning questions, and go from there.
Yeah, that's good advice. And I think I'll come to you in a sec, Helen. Even if
You don't need to.
I was that person who, I before as a Christian, I sort of grew up in like a very sort of maybe morally Christian home, I would say. And I was made to go to church as a kid. I did Sunday school like a couple of times, and it wasn't my thing. And so my understanding of church, I sort of threw out, and I was like, I've rejected it. No, I don't. Church isn't for me. It's not. And I threw out the idea of God kind of with that, but I'd never really considered it. And there came a point when I thought, we'd been on a school trip to Notre Dame, and my mate said to me, "Oh, do you believe in God?" And I thought, you know what, I think I do, but I haven't really thought it through. Like, I've got this way, if I think about it, sit down and think, is there a God? Yeah, I think probably is. But I hadn't thought any further than that. And that was like a bit of a turning point for me in thinking, I need to spend some time thinking that through, because I think with the rejection of church as an old traditional institution that wasn't for me, I sort of threw out God and faith and maybe I threw the baby out with the bathwater. And if that's you, you don't necessarily have to get together with Christians, but just start asking yourself those questions, like who is there a God? And if there is, like, who is he, and what does he think of me, and how does that affect a worldview? I think it's important, not necessarily you don't have to believe it, but it's important to have an opinion one way or the other, and to actually have thought it through. I can't remember what the original question was. What would your tips be, Helen, to anybody that's thinking like, I'm not sure I've had an encounter with Jesus, but maybe I
was just going to do an Alpha plug. But you've already done it for me. Sorted.
I did tell you what, it was because I know you've read my notes.
There's the email address.
Yeah. The Alpha course is. Have you done Alpha, Helen? Have you done the Alpha course?
Yeah. So you're not listening to my sermon this morning. I mentioned it this morning.
I'm a host.
So I've done Alpha a few times over, both as a participant and as a host, sort of whatever, and I really enjoy it. I get something from it every time. So it's literally just a space for you to come on Zoom, so you can. So if it's not for you, they might hate me saying this, if it's not for you, you can pretend your internet's broken and just leave. But I really would encourage you to give the first whole session a try and then start the second one. If you get halfway through the second one and you're still out, fine. But I would really encourage you to just even if you just sit there with your camera off and on mute, just listen to what everyone else has got to say. And it's a space for to listen to someone talk about what Jesus means to them and about a different aspect of Christianity and a different, in a really engaging way. Don't think Reverend Lovejoy from The Simpsons. It'll be far more engaging and relevant and relatable than that. And then there's space for you to just open fire with questions and be like, yeah, but what about this? Yeah, but what about that? And we welcome that. There's no sort of question that's too wrong or question that's too stupid at all. And actually, it's a really lovely opportunity to be able to throw all those questions out that normally people might go, I will talk to you later about that, or another time, or I don't know the answer. And actually, we might not know the answer, but we might know someone who will be able to answer it. We can then come back to you with some answers. But yeah, so
give him a text.
Yeah, I'll just be like, Martin,
help me.
We need you now. We help. He's probably not here anymore because he's probably hopefully enjoying his Thai takeaway. But no, if you're not sure whether it's for you or not, or whatever, do email alpha@hawleybaptist.org.uk and join us. It's only for 6 weeks, but as I said, if you get a couple of weeks in and go, not for me, your internet broke, that's fine, we understand. internet is awful at the moment. We get it.
Yeah.
But so it starts on the 14th at 7 o'clock on Zoom. So do consider joining us for that.
It's worth a go. I think you can actually watch on YouTube some of the videos that we're going to be watching, so you can have a look and see what you think before you even arrive. There you go.
They're really good quality videos, actually. They're really high.
Yeah.
They were like really nicely done.
Yeah.
I think people often equate Christian to cheap, but these videos don't
Really
look
good.
that way at all. And
They
lots
got
of
the
them
lady from
great.
CBeebies. You guys.
They do from
CBeebies?
Swashbuckle.
Yeah, that's it. I hosted this series a couple of years ago, and I couldn't get the Swashbuckle theme out of my head as I watched it. It was really bizarre. So there you go. But I'll tell you what, we're going to wrap it up because we're over time a little bit from my instructions. I'm going to get the SAT to keep going. But thank you so much, Toby. Thank you so much, Helen. It's been great to have you on. Really appreciate your thoughts. Thank you for everybody who dropped us questions. That was really helpful. Always makes it a little bit more interesting to have a bit of engagement. We hope this has been interesting. Hope you have a restful evening and a blessed week. And from us at Hawley Baptist, bye.
Bye.
Bye.